Hi everyone, my name is Ella Underdown-Gray and I am a Dynamics 365 CE consultant currently working at Intergen.
Kia ora, my name is Yvonne Bishop. I am the Service Design and Analysis Lead for the Department of Internal Affairs Te Ara Manaaki program.
And today we will be talking about Te Ara Manaaki, which is a digital transformation project utilising D365 and the Power Platform. So I'll start by giving you a bit of an overview about what we're going to talk to today. First of all, Yvonne will give you a bit of program context from a business perspective and some of the outcomes that we're looking to achieve as part of the program. Secondly, we'll talk to the partnership between Intergen and DIA and some of the really cool things that we've done with D365, the Power Platform and Azure. Alongside utilising those components to deliver specific outcomes, we also want to talk about how we have iterated on our solution design to ensure that DIA is set up with a platform that is extensible moving forward, that they can add new products and services to as they continue throughout their journey with Te Ara Manaaki. And then we will finish up with some of the things that we are looking to achieve next. So I will hand over to Yvonne to talk about the program context.
So Te Ara Manaaki, the purpose of the program is to ensure that our customers and their whānau are at the heart of our trusted identity and life event services. The whole idea here is making it easy for people to not only access information that we hold about themselves or to help register information about themselves, but also to enable easier access to other services they might need. The program itself has some critical success measures. We're looking to improve the service experience for customers. Many people across New Zealand, so I'll just step back a second. We've got a mandate to do a great job of keeping information safe for New Zealanders. But for many people across New Zealand, proving who you are so you can access government services isn't easy and can create a barrier for some of those that have the higher needs. There's a cost to obtain government registered identity evidence. However, it's not a cost that makes profit. It's a recovery cost only. So the more we can reduce the cost to serve, the greater our ability to reduce cost for customers. Additionally, increasing support for service providers who need to confirm a customer's identity provides opportunity to reduce the cost for other agencies, the operational cost for other agencies, which creates an opportunity to reduce the wider government cost to serve New Zealanders. So it's quite a critical foundational program that we are looking to achieve benefits that make it better and easier for all New Zealanders. The resilience and protection part of our success measures, alongside reducing the cost to serve, like many agencies, we have some reasonably ageing technology. It's not conducive to quick change that enables us to kind of respond rapidly to evolving technology. With the evolving technology landscape comes an ever-changing threat landscape, and also a desire for, as more awareness grows of people's rights to keep their privacy, keep their data safe, more kind of understanding of what that means in a digital world. We're getting greater expectations around people's ability to control this themselves, some autonomy and control of personal data. Maintaining the assurance and integrity of DIA's identity services is critical for New Zealanders. It's keeping New Zealanders safe, but it's also New Zealand's reputation globally. The business context of Te Ara Manaaki, it's a transformation program. It's not just a technical transformation. In fact, the technology transformation is the enabler behind this, but the transformation is transforming pretty much everything. The way that the business understands itself is changing. At the moment, the business of the service delivery organisation, as part of Department of Internal Affairs, is responsible for providing citizenship services, passport services, birth, death and marriage registration services. These things are reasonably independent in terms of the structure of the business, and so people who work in one area only. so it's reasonably siloed in terms of its current business model. Underneath all of those different services, citizenship, passports, births, deaths and marriages is a core function of identity, providing confidence that we understand who that person is, we know them, and we can help them to solidify the life events or the identity services they're looking for, that then help them go on to do the things that they're looking to do. This also changes, from a business perspective, the future investment model. So rather than kind of looking at how do we invest specifically in citizenship or passports or births, deaths and marriages, as a business, we're looking more to invest in the things that enable greater efficiency of service delivery, greater protection of the data that we hold and keep safe for New Zealanders. So we're looking for how can we leverage and connect with other data sources to make customers' lives easier, to make access easier. Part of the future state model is kind of looking at how do we separate identity proofing from service fulfillment. So once we're confident that we know who you are, the entitlement that you have to the services that are the life event and travel related services becomes almost a fait accompli. The ability for us to connect to greater data sources also provides us the ability to create ease and operational efficiency in identity proofing. A really good example of this is if we think about the data held by Immigration New Zealand on people who have come to New Zealand and got residency and are now looking for citizenship. There has been a very formal identity proofing process happened through immigration, and where possible we want to leverage that data to make the process through to citizenship a cleaner, easier and a cleaner and easier process for both the customer and a greater level of assurance around the identity proofing and confidence that we have through that process. We're looking to take the silos of people that we have working, or silos, that the workforce that we have that work in the specific products, and actually enable them to work across a wide range of things, recognising that identity is kind of the core and common foundation for most of the services. The different services that exist today also sit on different technology, and so our ability to, so we have great ability to kind of connect information across these different technology environments, but much of that relies on manual support of people. So we're looking to leverage the creation of a core platform that is kind of person-centred and allows us to connect that information in ways that work for the customer. We're also looking for ways to enable customers to have greater access to their information and greater control over how it's used. That's kind of the longer term view. Our first steps in this are to create a platform that enables us to have a customer centred view rather than a customer per product centred view. All of this together with kind of reviewing, revising and rethinking how we provide access and support for customers will ultimately reduce barriers for customers to access government services. Our first challenge in the program, or the first focus of the program, was to look at one of the service areas that didn't have a digital entry for customers. So we took the citizenship service, which until not too long ago was a paper application process. In theory, it sounded great to start with something that wasn't already digital, but one of the challenges that we've experienced and are working our way through was very much around, in the citizenship world, there isn't any separation between the person, the application, and the outcome of registered citizenship. In terms of a technical environment, that's all one environment. So not only was this a collection of the things that we needed to articulate clearly as the separate components that they are, we also needed to help our staff understand what that means in terms of their processing, their current knowledge of how the service works. And this was potentially a big we instituted, and it would be fair to say that we've got a long way to go yet, but we've certainly made some great strides, and we have a front-end service for citizenship now that has great uptake. It's beginning to extend its capability to give us some of the future ability to automate the identity, some of the identity proofing aspects. And we're beginning to establish the foundational back end of the system that allows us to have a view of the person independent from a view of the application, and hold the final outcome of registered data in a very controlled and safe environment. I'm going to hand over to Ella to walk you through the portal aspects of the program to date and some of the great strides we've made in that space in terms of creating that support environment.
Cool, thanks Yvonne. So what I am keen to do now is show the customer experience for applying for citizenship. So this is our customer hub. I see citizenship applications that I've applied for previously down the bottom, and a citizenship application that I have in progress up the top. Now, whilst this just shows citizenship applications at the moment, as new products and services come on, we will be looking to show them here as well. So this will be the place where the customer can come to manage all of the interactions that they have with DIA. So if I jump through now to my application that I have in progress, you will see that we have split the application up into quite a few easy to manage sections. So we understand that this is quite a long application, and so the ability for customers to complete them in sections and move through the sections as they would like to is really important. What we have also done with the portal is extended it using a companion app. Now, what this allows us to do is make external API calls within the context of the customer completing the application. Two areas where this has been particularly beneficial for citizenship is uploading supporting documentation and doing an identity verification check. So if I click through to the document section, you will see that I've actually already uploaded a document, so we can see what that looks like. So for citizenship, there are a couple of mandatory pieces of documentation that need to be uploaded. One of them is a travel document. So what happens when we upload a document? And we can see that here. So when the customer goes to upload a document, is we create a record in D365 to hold the metadata for that document. We then call our document upload API, which uploads the customer's document directly to Azure Blob Storage. So as part of that process, we also do some validation checks, things like file size, file type, and a few others. And we also run the document through an anti-malware service. So we use Microsoft anti-malware as part of Azure Cloud Services. Once it's been uploaded successfully, then we write the metadata back to the document in D365. So we give it an upload successful status, and we also put the partial URL for where the record is sitting in blob storage on the record as well. So when a case officer is processing this application, they can go and view the supporting documentation that has been uploaded by the customer. I will just come back to the hub now and click through to our identity section. So as part of a citizenship application, it's really important that we verify the customer's identity. And so what that involves here is them uploading a passport photo, and then they need to complete an identity check, or what we call take pictures of themselves nodding their head, shaking their head, and blinking, and that's how we help to verify their identity. So similarly, we use the companion app here, and what we do is create a record in D365 to hold the metadata for that identity check. We then seamlessly redirect the customer to the third party that they need to use to complete the liveness check. And once they've successfully moved through that process, we write the check results back to the record in D365. So as part of processing the application, the obviously validated. What I'm going to do here using Power Apps Portal is take a paper application and provide an online way for customers to complete that. They can input the information, they can upload supporting documentation. Previously, they were having to create copies or sometimes part with originals of very personal documentation and send it in, and now they can upload it directly to their application. We can also validate their identity, and previously that would have looked like a face-to-face interview. So all of those components together have really changed the customer experience, and now that can all be done from the comfort of your own home. Once the customer has submitted their application and paid for it, then we send them a confirmation email straight away so that they know that we've received the application, and then they have that confirmation with them. Cool, so I'll jump back now and hand back to Yvonne to introduce Access, Workforce and Workflow for DIA.
So a couple of notes. So I mentioned this earlier that we currently have quite a siloed workforce. They are focused on quite specific life event or travel document products. And that is, for the most part, still how DIA's workforce is set up. We are looking to move to a centralised workforce where it's possible for people to work across products and services. This gives DIA some enormous flexibility in terms of being able to shift people to where the demand is greatest. And perhaps now's a really good example where there isn't a great deal of demand for passports at the moment, funnily enough. But there is still a great demand for citizenship, and of course babies keep being born, people are still getting married, and people still die. So there's still lots of demand, but the fluctuations in demand can be more easily managed with a common workforce. One of the things I mentioned earlier around the integrity and resilience, which is another outcome for the program. Cloud adoption is a significant resilience step for our system, but we have to kind of balance this opportunity with protection, integrity, and public perception. The sovereign data segments to New Zealand and New Zealanders. So we've had some really interesting challenges to get to the point where actually a cloud-based service environment is great. It's a great investment. It's a great way forward for us. The flexibility that the Dynamics platforms provided has been great, but challenging also because it's very flexible. And so trying to work our way through what is the right design for us to achieve the balancing that we need across the system to make sure that we're maintaining the integrity that as an organisation looks for us perhaps a little bit different to other organisations. So we're implementing what we call our control framework. The control framework uses the combination of access, workforce and workflow to control not only who gets to see what, but also how we kind of maintain and manage controls over time. So perhaps where we started was a slightly older model, like or a more familiar model, where every specific role in the organisation had a specific access type. What we're trying to do is create a general role and then control the ability to manage what through using the combination of workforce and workflow capabilities. When we stepped out, we kind of wanted a I was going to talk through some of this, but I thought I'd share another lesson, which is kind of it's more of a lesson in taking an agile approach to this. So we started out like most areas where we have an all bells and whistles. This is kind of the outcome we're looking for, and then as is the normal process when you're working in a more iterative environment. We looked at, okay, so what would we agree as an MVP for this particular environment? We talked a little bit about work queues and understand their significance in the long term, but we made a decision for our MVP that we wouldn't actually implement work queues. We would start with just having our workforce enabled, and as each service entered the system, it would be automatically allocated. And we thought we could manage with that for a little bit. It was kind of reasonable in theory, but we underestimated the impact on staff. Staff were used to having kind of 30 to 50. So we're talking about citizenship. It's the service that is currently our first cab off the rank. Staff were used to dealing with kind of 30 to 50 citizenship applications at any one time, with the backlog of applications kind of just sitting off to one side and not really visible until they were ready to get the next piece of work. By not implementing the queues as part of the MVP, it meant that basically we took all of the work and we allocated it straight away. So it was almost like taking the backlog that was in the cupboard and just cleaning the shelves and distributing it everywhere. So instead of having 30 to 50 cases each, staff very quickly had kind of 100 plus, which has definitely created some angst and some stress with what feels probably for many people quite overwhelming. We have now moved to the queues, and so we're starting to reduce that kind of visibility and give a little bit more certainty to staff around what they need to be working on right now. I'll hand over to Ella and she'll talk to you more about some of these capabilities.
Cool, so I'm just going to take a little bit of a step back and sort of talk about how we have set up our security model in Dynamics and in Azure to enable a workforce that can work across multiple products and services. So about mid last year, we adopted the use of Azure Active Directory groups and the alignment that that has with D365. So what we have on the very left of this diagram is an AD group for the program, and all of the users are a part of that. What we also have within that is groups that align to business roles. So as part of Te Ara Manaaki, some examples are our case officers that can work across multiple products and services, also customer service officers, workforce managers. So they clearly align to business roles rather than product areas. Once we've created those groups in Azure, we then create almost an exact replica as a D365 AAD security group, and what links those is the Azure AD object ID. So that creates the sync between those two. Once we have our team in Dynamics, we can then associate security roles to that team. So what happens when a user logs in to D365, we know what AD group they're a part of and therefore what team they are a part of, and then the user inherits the security roles linked to that team when they log in. So what we've done here is we've removed the need to associate a security role directly to a user in production or in any of our environments. This has had two really big benefits for us, one of them being onboarding. So when a user is onboarded, they're added to the Active Directory group that aligns to their business role. This could be one or multiple, depending on what they need. And that's it. When they log into production, they inherit the security that they need as part of that role from the aligned D365 team. So that's really removed a process where new users added in production, and then we need to work out what roles we manually link to that user. The second big benefit this has had is in reducing dependencies. So I've got a little diagram here of a new feature that we've been working on at the moment called Replacement Certificate. So this is a new feature that enables case officers to issue a replacement citizenship certificate for a customer who may have lost theirs or damaged them, etc. So what we've done is we've built out that new functionality, and we've also created 3 security roles specific to that functionality. So we've got one for our case officer team, one for our workforce manager team, and then a base role which we have applied to 3 other teams. So what we've done is we've built the new functionality, we've created those new security roles, and we've associated them to the relevant teams in Dev, and we have scripted their deployment all the way through. So what this has enabled us to do is release that replacement certificate feature completely independently of any security roles that we already have. what we had moved, this is work we've been kind of doing at the moment. So what we had before was kind of a direct mapping between team and security role, i.e. case officer team, case officer security role. But that started to create dependencies, because if we're creating our new replacement certificate feature over here, we need to take a security role that we've already got and apply permissions to that. So this for us was about reducing dependencies on a program where we need to be adding multiple products and services throughout a journey. It enables us to do that and release that independently of work that we have already done. As Yvonne talked to before, we have also introduced queues. So we've got our case officer team, which has, let's say, 3 security roles, each for different products. Now, only if I'm in a queue for a particular product will I receive that work. So whilst I might technically have permission to work on 3 products, only if I'm in that queue can I receive that work. So that's where our really tight user ownership comes in, because only if I own that particular product record can I actually execute what I have permission to do. So I will jump back into Dynamics and we can have a look at how this works. So what I've got here is a model-driven app specific for case officers, and we've got a case officer dashboard here. Now, if I scroll down to the bottom, what we've done is provide case officers with an I'm ready button. So I will just click on that now. And as Yvonne talked to before, this really empowers a case officer to manage their own workload. So they choose when they're ready for more work, and then they can click the I'm ready button and have that work delivered to them on their dashboard, as you will have just seen that refresh there, based on the queues that they are in. So let's have a look at the flow that we've got running behind this. So what happens when I click the I'm ready button is that we have a custom action that will pass my user ID to the flow. And so then it goes, great, Ella's looking for some new work and we know who she is. And so we've got my user ID here. Then we're setting up the variables that we need to run the flow. And then the next action is to go, okay, cool, what queues is Ella in? Now, currently I'm only in 1. If I was in multiple queues, what we're looking for is the oldest piece of work in that queue that is not currently being worked on. Once we've retrieved those, we're then doing a comparison to work out which one is the oldest of those. And once we have identified that, so we've got our queue item here, which I've been assigned, then we can call the root function from the queue to assign that piece of work to me, and that's what you saw appear on my dashboard. So if I jump back to the dashboard now, we've got my new piece of work. So these are my service requests down the bottom. These are kind of the container, which will hold 1 or many applications, depending if a person is applied individually or for a group. And up the top, we will see the applications that I have got. So we can click into one of these and see what it looks like in D365. Cool. So what you can see here is we've got a range of tabs across the top, quite closely linked to those sections that we saw on the portal that the customer has to fill out. And what we've got in the middle here is our application processing pane. So this is where the case officer will come to process the application. What we've got here is 4 entities that we call units of work. So a case officer will work through these units of work sequentially in order to process the application. If I click into a unit of work, you'll see that these are almost shell entities for a list of tasks that need to be completed, and we've added some relevant information down the bottom here to help the case officer do that. These are our list of tasks here, and if I click into one, we can have a look. So what sits behind these tasks is a reusable task model that we have created, and this could be picked up and used across multiple products and services. And this is a set of related entities that essentially comes together as a task configuration record. And this is what's used to generate the tasks needed for a unit of work. So there are a couple of things that this task configuration record holds. One of them being the application type, because there are different tasks needed depending on whether it's a child application or an adult application. Also the specific unit of work, because there are different tasks for each unit of work, also depending on whether you're a child or an adult. And then we also have it holding a task type and an outcome type. Now these are hidden fields that are set on the form using related records filtering to drive the answers that a case officer can put in when completing a task. So if I hit enter here, we can see that the outcome type here is either fail or pass. So I can say that they have passed this. And then if we hit criteria as well, we've got a list of specific answers that the case officer can choose from. So I'm going to choose the liveness check, which we had a look at earlier. So this is really important to provide a standardized way for processing applications, especially when you have a workforce working across multiple products and services. Where this also comes in is it's really important that we know what piece of legislation a customer is granted citizenship under. So being able to provide those as clear options which can be selected is also really important. At the moment, this is quite a manual process for the case officer. They need to go through the unit of work and complete those tasks. But what we're looking to do as we can integrate with more government services is provide automation to this process. So for the case officer coming in and looking at a unit of work, it's more of a validation exercise rather than a completion exercise. Cool. So that's what we have seen there. And I'll pass back to Yvonne to talk about some lessons we've had on our journey.
So probably one of the key lessons for us, and hopefully for all of us in the program, is certainly there's some real challenge in understanding the terminology for those who work day in and day out in the 365 environment. The terminology is well known, but as soon as you bring a business context into it, a lot of those terms have quite a different meaning in the business. And it's tripped us up more than once. So one of the lessons that I think is useful to understand or useful to kind of pay attention to is you can't really start early enough with your business stakeholders to understand what is it that, what do they call the things? What is it that they are doing? What is it that, how do they describe what they do and what they need? And wherever possible, describe back to them in that language how Dynamics delivers that. There are some, for us, there have been some really blindingly screaming examples of this, and I'll share one of these with you a little bit further on. I think one of the program lessons that we've had is very much wanting to move quickly, to really realise the potential of the platform and move quickly onto it. We moved very quickly, and we discovered some things a little bit further down the track that we're now kind of reviewing and revising. So one of the challenges was we picked up the citizenship product as the first cab off the rank, needing a digital service for it, and we created the units of work and workflow in behind it. What we didn't do was build the evidence of identity, the identity component separately. We are now doing that, and we will, citizenship will adopt the future state identity proofing service as part of a future change. But it's certainly created an interesting journey for us as we understand what are the boundaries of the identity unit of work, and does that actually translate to the full service that we are standing up now in identity proofing. So that's kind of been a really good program lesson, which, yeah, it's created some technical debt, but it's actually given us a huge amount of learning. In terms of where to next, what next? Well, actually, before I go there, so here's a really good example of terminology, right? So this has been a real challenge for many of us, and it's going to continue to be a challenge because Dynamics has lead and contact. There's no concept of a lead in internal affairs. There's no concept of a lead really in government because we're not sales. we're not looking for that kind of conversion process. However, what we now realise is that it's the conversion process that is the key thing for us. So when Dynamics calls it a lead, we know that for us it's a contact. It's a not yet verified contact. And the transition that we take that contact through for DIA creates a person, and that's a person that is someone that has some credential associated with them, someone that we have a little bit more trust that we know who they are. And of course, in Dynamics terms, that's a contact. So you can imagine that, whenever we're talking DIA contact or DIA person, there's this kind of pause. Actually, which entity are we talking about here? So that's kind of been a really good example of something that's been challenging, but it's just another way to kind of reinforce that the sooner you can understand the business terminology and play back to them the Dynamics capability in their terminology, the greater and faster the adoption of the capability of the platform. That's my opinion. Next, for Te Aramanaki, we are looking to implement the identity proofing service standalone. We'll be doing that in its first iteration as part of the first-time passports service. It won't be the full end-to-end identity proofing. It's introducing some new capability in identity proofing. We'll still have the majority of passports identity proofing happening as it does today. But this gives us that first implementation of taking someone who is brand new to us and converting them into a person that we know and have confidence that we know. It's also giving us an opportunity to use the customers that have come in previously as a citizen by grant, have achieved citizenship by grant through the CCMS service, or been migrated onto the, CCMS, our customer centered management solution. Just that's what we call it. Another terminology difference. So those CBGs, citizenship by grant customers, they've already been through an establishment for identity in DIA's context. When they come back for a passport, which the majority of them do within kind of 9 months of getting citizenship, they'll come back through the new passports portal service. And when they come through that service, because we already hold a person record for them that has already been proofed, and we're holding some of their identity data there, we'll be able to confirm who they are on the way in. So Ella mentioned before that as we get more integration, case officers will be looking at kind of more just a validation activity. We are expecting that for citizenship grant applicants for passport, the majority of them will have their identity proofed before they even get to the passport service. So they come in already known and reduce a whole lot of effort and activity for staff. So that's kind of identity proofing and person management. So another area of future for Te Aramanaki is, and Ella's mentioned this in from a couple of different perspectives, but the ability for us to apply security roles at a feature level is going to help us with breaking down smaller features and being able to release them without turning them on, so to speak. So we're going to get a great amount of traction in terms of our ability to go faster. We have integration happening with immigration at the moment. This is specifically to help people understand whether they meet some of these citizenship criteria. I know I was having this conversation earlier, but I can't remember whether it was this conversation or a separate conversation. So basically, immigration holds the information about a person's travel movement and visa status. And this has been a real challenge for citizenship customers in particular, because the calculation for presence in the country is incredibly complex, and it's very hard for us to change because it's legislated. So it's kind of a rolling set of years that, from today's date, over the last 5 years, have I been here for a set number of days in each year? It becomes really tricky. And so what we have at the moment is we have a lot of customers who can't get absolute concrete clarity on whether they meet today. And from a legislative perspective, when they apply, they have to meet. And if they meet the next day, that's unfortunate. They're going to have to apply again. And that's the way that the legislation is structured. So we've got customers coming in at the moment, they don't meet on the day. We have to go through a process with them to refund them and help them apply again. The immigration connection will allow us to use that customer's data, check with the immigration data, and play back to them whether they actually do meet today. So it just takes away a whole lot of the back and forward for them. Other integrations we'll be looking at kind of future is we have a lot of people who live in other countries. Australia is a really good example where they have entitlement to New Zealand citizenship by descent. And it's quite a tricky area for us because this person's been born overseas, but they have a parent who was born in New Zealand, so that's their kind of claim to the descent for citizenship. We're looking to have some integration capability with a confirmation service in Australia. I think it's either data or document verification service, which is a very useful confirmation service in Australia because each of the states manage their life event registries and processes separately. So this kind of consolidates them all, and we're looking to integrate with that service to make the ability to evidence to confirm evidence that someone's providing so that we can actually establish their descent claim. So that's some of the kind of more immediate program areas. The bigger outcome for Te Aramanaki, as well as kind of getting out of the way, helping DIA kind of get out of the way of customers who are trying to access services and need to prove their identity in that process. We're also looking to really increase our ability to help customers understand how their data is being used. So if you think about the way that banks work currently, or credit card merchants work currently, where if there is some kind of anomaly or transaction that they don't think fits with what would be a reasonably normal process of transactions for you, they often give you a call. We're not suggesting for a second that we're going to call people, but we are wanting to understand how can we take it that next step to make sure that we're keeping that information for New Zealanders safe. So if we have a central view of the person and we're able to help them confirm themselves in any way, shape or form that they want to, can we also over time give them visibility of how their information is being consumed so that they can identify whether there's anything they need to be concerned with, but ultimately putting control of identity information into the hands of the people who actually own it, who's people who it belongs to. So that's kind of longer term. We are really looking to do two things: get out of the way, make it easier for people to access services, and actually put control, put power back into their hands so that they have the autonomy to complete their life admin and do what they need to do without having to be at the mercy of government service.
We got any questions
Yes,
come up?
we do.
We do, okay.
We do have a few questions. So were there any issues using the cloud timing services from a data sovereignty perspective, and how did you overcome those?
Sure. So there were definitely challenges in this area. So the way that we approached this was to kind of break down what the different types of data are and what its purpose, the purpose of that data. So I talked before about the separation of the person and the service and the register. The register is the authoritative source of truth for identity data. It's the final outcome. That doesn't live in the cloud. That lives onshore. We hold that here. And the only that information is linked to a person record, but that's as far as it goes. So that was kind of that was one of the bigger areas of we've put a stake in the ground. This is the data that is most precious to make sure we keep safe. So that was kind of how we landed that. There are still lots of conversations as we move into different services and different products, and this will continue to be conversation and decisions made at different times depending on what product or service we're dealing with. But certainly there has been an absolute stake in the ground that if it's the register for New Zealanders' identity information, it's here.
Okay, and there's another question about security and any privacy issues or challenges that you faced during the project, and how did you overcome those?
We have in the program we have some exceptionally talented security people, and we have both a security team and a privacy team that are embedded in the program. It would be fair to say that they do a great job of keeping us honest. There's always some good tension and some healthy debate. In terms of overcoming them, I don't know whether overcoming them is actually the right kind of frame. Really, fundamentally, we need to keep this information safe. We need to keep New Zealanders' information safe. That's not up for negotiation. In terms of the healthy debate, it's when we look at what are the options we have and which ones of those are more or less practical. And when I say practical, I mean looking at all the different perspectives. Is this going to put a huge overhead of effort, a huge overhead of cost for what intrinsic value? So those conversations are ongoing. They're a constant part of the fabric of the Te Ara Manaaki program. And as I said, we've got a great team in that place, and there are always multiple options to work through, which is makes for some great conversations. I hope that kind of gives enough.
Yeah, there's one more in here. Were there any issues experienced? If yes, how is that resolved and with portal access?
Not sure I am the right person to answer that question, but I will take note of it and get back to you on that one.
Okay. Okay. I also have a question just regarding non-functional requirements. So did you guys, were in non-functional requirements, did you find any challenges addressing those? You talked a little bit about security, maybe it was about availability, scalability, or was it not an issue at all?
Yes and no in terms of was it an issue or not at all. Certainly, I think this is not so much a challenge in terms of platform. This is probably a bit more of a challenge in terms of the more agile way of operating. Non-functional requirements for some parts of the service are reasonably well understood. They're particularly well understood when it comes to what kind of experience we need to create for customers. We probably didn't spend as much time as we needed to on some of the non-functional areas in the staff-facing side of things. We are certainly making up for that now in terms of understanding how we can shift the staff experience to give them something that actually feels a lot more productive and efficient. In terms of performance related, we have challenges occasionally with different performance in different areas, but for the most part, there's been a pretty quick resolution, or at least an identification of root cause and a pathway to resolve.
Okay. That's really good. There's a very good question in here on what is the governance model?
The governance model of the program?
Of the program or of the technology, let's say. So there's a few layers of governance that you can have.
Oh, yes.
What do you guys do?
Yeah, we have a few layers. Yes. The program is reasonably independent. I say reasonably. There is an overarching body of governance that is what we call our design authority. That's made up of our general managers and a range of other people who are specialists in specific areas of capability or service in DIA's Service Delivery and Operations Group. So that's kind of an overarching body. Underneath that, we have an integrated design forum, which is pretty much looking at all of the technical solution options or the technical considerations, technical designs. And that group, they're a program governance group, but they work very closely with the wider DIA kind of design forums around technology. So we've got the design authority, and then we've got three sets underneath, three kind of governance groups underneath. We've got that integrated design forum. We've got what we call OPRA, our operational policy risk and assurance group. And so they're kind of interested in what are we implementing? What are the considerations that need to be understood in terms of those different perspectives? So what operational policy support, what process support, what kind of assurance has been put over what's intended. And then we have our experience forum, which is very much driving the requirements around both customer and staff experience. The experience forum was established and then kind of got a little bit dissolved, and we're just re-establishing it now because it's a critical forum to make sure that we actually hold particularly some of those non-functionals and right up front. So that's kind of the key areas that govern the program. I mean, there's your standard program, your program governance, your project management office, those kind of things. But in terms of decision making around transformation and the way forward, those are the three main bodies. The three main bodies plus the design authority, which sits across the top.
Sounds good. I think that's the last of the questions. Any last words before you guys conclude?
No, I think that's everything from us. Thank you to the sponsors, Kingsway Soft and Microsoft. And if you do have any further questions, just pop them on the chat or get in touch with one of us.
Yeah, there's one more.
Oh, there's one more.
Was the project delivered using Agile or Scrum?
Okay, so we run SAFE, Scaled Agile Framework is the model, but for those of you who are familiar with Agile or any of the flavours, I guess, very much this is not a by the book. We definitely apply the philosophy, we definitely apply some of the discipline around the way that we approach our work. We've had, I think we're now, and so for those of you who know SAFE, you'll know that there are iterations, sprints that run inside an increment. So we very much follow that breakdown of work. So we look at an increment that is 12 weeks. And so we're always doing the next kind of 12 weeks of planning. And I think it's fair to say we're getting a lot better. It's been some big learning. And I think one of the bigger learnings for us has been once the platform is there and the foundation is in, and you've got your first kind of live environment, it's heaps easier to start doing a much smaller kind of feature-based regular release cycle than your first time in. So there's been a lot of learnings for us, but by and large we follow the SAFE model for Agile, and it's working, I think, pretty well for us.
Sounds good. All right, thank you very much, Yvonne and Ella.
Thank you.